Station 7 floated in the darkness of space like a metal mountain. It was the largest military training facility in the Galactic Concordat, home to thousands of young soldiers from dozens of alien species. They came here to learn how to fight, how to follow orders, and how to serve the alliance that kept peace among the stars. Stood in the back of the formation, trying to be invisible. She was 22 years old, born on Titan, one of the moons of Saturn. Her skin was brown, her hair was black and cut short, and her eyes were the color of dark coffee. She was not tall. She was not impressive. Among the massive aliens around her, she looked like a child standing among giants. Humanity had joined the Galactic Concordat only 40 years ago. In the long history of the galaxy, this was nothing. There had been members for 3,000 years, for 5,000. Humans were newcomers, outsiders. Many species called them the charity case of the Concordat. Was one of 12 humans selected for the exchange program at 7. It was supposed to be an honor. In reality, it felt like a punishment. The training yard was enormous, large enough to hold 200 trainees standing in perfect rows. Most of them were aliens of various shapes and sizes. There were the thin and delicate creatures whose skin glowed with soft blue light. There were the, covered in thick fur, with 6 legs and gentle eyes. There were the, whose bodies were partly liquid, contained in special suits that let them move on land. And then there were the dominant military species in the Concordat. They stood nearly 8 feet tall, covered in scales that were harder than steel. Each had 4 arms ending in clawed hands that could tear through metal. Their faces were reptilian, with 4 eyes that could see in every direction. They had ruled the Concordat's military for 300 years, and they never let anyone forget it. Commander was the worst of them. He walked down the rows of trainees now, his 4 eyes scanning for weakness. His scales were dark green, almost black, and scars covered his body from battles could not imagine. He was a warlord caste officer, the highest rank it could be born into. To him, every other species was inferior. Useful, perhaps, but never equal. Kept her eyes forward and her breathing steady. She had learned in her first week that the best way to survive was to be invisible. Do not stand out. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not give them a reason to notice you. It did not always work. Stopped in front of a young named. They were a telepathic species, sensitive and intelligent but physically fragile. His glow flickered with fear as the massive commander looked down at him. "Your weapon stance is wrong," said. His voice was deep and cold like stones grinding together. "I apologize," Commander said. His voice was barely a whisper. "I will correct it." "You will correct it now." Tried to adjust his grip on the training rifle. His thin arms shook. The weapon was designed for larger species, and it was heavy in his delicate hands. Watched for a moment. Then, without warning, he struck across the face with the back of his primary hand. The blow sent the flying backward. He landed hard on the ground, his glow flickering wildly. No one moved, no one spoke. "Weakness," said, looking around at the assembled trainees, "is a disease. It spreads. It infects. The Concordat has grown soft, allowing inferior species to pretend they can be warriors." His 4 eyes found the cluster of human trainees near the back. Some species should never have been allowed to join at all. Felt the words like a knife in her chest, but she did not react. She kept her face blank, her body still. Beside her, another human trainee, a young man named, clenched his fists. She touched his arm gently, a warning. "Not now, not here." Lieutenant's aide helped to his feet. She was 2 but younger, and something in her eyes looked almost troubled. She said nothing, though. Loyalty to her superior was absolute. The days that followed were hard, seemed to take special pleasure in targeting the human trainees. He gave them extra duties. He criticized their every movement. He made them run until they collapsed, then mocked them for their weakness. "Humans," he announced one morning, "are the softest species in the Concordat. Their bodies are fragile. Their minds are slow. They have no claws, no scales, no natural weapons. They are prey animals who somehow learned to build spaceships. The other trainees laughed. Some of them genuinely found it funny. Others laughed because they were afraid not to. Said nothing. She did her duties. She trained. She studied. At night, she practiced alone in her quarters, moving through fighting forms that humans had developed over thousands of years. Her grandmother had taught her these forms when she was a child. Her grandmother had called them the art of the empty hand. "Why do we learn to fight without weapons?" Had asked once when she was very young. Her grandmother had smiled. "Because weapons can be taken away. But this," she had tapped forehead, then her heart, "this can never be taken." Found one evening in the common area. This face was still bruised from his blow, but his glow was steady now. "You are different from the other humans," he said, sitting beside her. "Different how?" "The others are afraid. You are also afraid, but there is something else." His telepathic senses brushed against her mind, gentle as a breeze. Something deeper, something patient. Did not know how to answer that, so she said nothing. "The commander will target you eventually," said. "He targets everyone who does not break quickly. He enjoys the ones who resist." "I know," said. "What will you do?" Thought about her grandmother's lessons, about the thousands of years of human history filled with violence and war and survival against impossible odds, about the simple truth that humans had always been smaller and weaker than the things that tried to kill them. "I will do what humans have always done," she said finally. "I will adapt." A week later, the moment came. The trainees were assembled for morning inspection. Commander walked slowly down the rows, his 4 eyes searching for any imperfection. He stopped in front of. "Human," he said, "recite the honor code in the original tongue." Felt her heart beat faster, but she kept her voice steady. She had studied the code, memorized every word, but was a difficult language for human throats, and her pronunciation was imperfect. She recited the words. She stumbled twice. Smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Pathetic," he said, "but I expect nothing more from your species." He leaned closer, his 4 eyes boring into hers. "Tomorrow, human, I will teach you what real discipline looks like." Held his gaze. She did not blink, she did not look away. Something in his expression flickered, surprise perhaps, or curiosity. Tomorrow would come soon enough. The dawn cycle on Station 7 began with artificial sunlight flooding the training yard. 200 trainees stood in perfect rows, their breath visible in the cold morning air. Stood in her usual place near the back, wearing the standard gray uniform of a Concordat trainee. She had not slept well. His promise of discipline had echoed in her mind all night, but she had also used that time to prepare, to breathe, to remember everything her grandmother had taught her. Commander arrived exactly on time. His scales gleamed in the artificial light, and his 4 eyes swept across the formation like searchlights. Behind him walked Lieutenant, her expression carefully blank. "Today," announced, his voice carrying across the yard, "we will practice combat fundamentals. I have noticed that many of you have grown lazy, soft. You hold your weapons like farmers hold farming tools." He paused, letting his words sink in. "This is unacceptable." He began walking through the rows, stopping occasionally to correct a stance or criticize a grip. The trainees he passed stiffened with fear. Even the larger species, the ones with natural weapons and armor, seemed small under his attention. Then he reached. "Step forward, human." Stepped out of formation. Her heart was beating fast, but her face showed nothing. She had learned long ago how to hide her fear. Every human learned this eventually. It was necessary for survival. "You will demonstrate proper combat stance," said. He handed her a training staff, a weighted pole used for basic exercises. "Show us what your species considers fighting technique." Took the staff. She knew this was a trap. Whatever she did, it would not be good enough. But she had to try. She settled into a stance her grandmother had taught her, feet shoulder-width apart, knees slightly bent, weight balanced. The staff held diagonal across her body, ready to block or strike. Circled her slowly. "Interesting," he said, though his tone made the word sound like an insult. "Your feet are wrong, your hips are wrong, your grip is wrong." He leaned close to her face. "Everything about you is wrong." Adjusted her feet. She adjusted her grip. She kept her breathing steady. "Better," admitted, "but still pathetic. Your species does not understand true combat. You are too weak, too slow, too fragile." He reached out and pushed her shoulder. She stumbled but did not fall. "You see, a gentle touch and you nearly collapse." The other trainees watched in silence. Some looked away. Others stared with sick fascination. His glow was dim with distress. The other humans stood rigid, helpless. "Again," commanded. "Show me the stance again." Reset her position. This time she made no mistakes. "Wrong," said anyway. He struck her. The blow came without warning, the back of his primary hand crashing across her face. It was not his full strength. If it had been, her skull would have shattered. But it was enough. The impact sent a shock of pain through her entire body. She felt her skin split, felt blood begin to run down her cheek. She staggered but did not fall. Her vision blurred for a moment, then cleared. The training yard was absolutely silent. No one moved. No one breathed. Leaned in close again. His breath was hot against her injured face. "This is why your species will never." Moved. Later, witnesses would struggle to describe what happened. The aliens saw only a blur of motion. One moment was bleeding and beaten. The next moment, Commander was face down on the ground. But the humans in the formation saw everything. They saw his hand shoot upward, catching his arm as he reached for her again. They saw her body drop low, shifting her weight like water finding a new path. They saw her use his own momentum against him, redirecting his mass in a direction he did not expect. They saw her apply leverage to joints that were not designed to bend that way. They saw her find the gaps in his scales, the soft places where nerves clustered close to the surface. They saw her move with precision that came from thousands of years of human fighting knowledge, passed down through generations, refined and perfected. 10 seconds, that was all it took. Commander, 8 feet of armored reptilian muscle, veteran of 3 interstellar wars, lay face down on the training yard floor. His 4 arms were locked behind his back at angles that prevented any movement. His knee pressed against his spine, directly over the gap between 2 major scale plates, where the nervous system was most exposed. If she pressed harder, he would be paralyzed. He knew this, she knew this, everyone watching knew this. Tried to move. Pain shot through his body and he stopped. He was completely, utterly immobilized. The silence stretched. It seemed to last forever. Lieutenant's hand moved toward her sidearm. Then it stopped. She did not draw. She did not move at all. Her 4 eyes were wide with something that might have been shock or might have been wonder. His voice was calm, conversational, as if she were discussing the weather rather than holding a commander helpless on the ground. "The Honor Code," she said. "Section 7. A warrior who cannot defend against an unarmed opponent has no honor to defend." She paused. "I may have mispronounced it earlier, Commander. Did I get it right this time?" Said nothing. He could not speak. His throat was pressed against the ground, and any vibration might trigger the nerve pressure that would end his ability to walk. Around the training yard, 200 trainees stared. The among them looked horrified. The other species looked stunned. The humans looked like they were witnessing a miracle. His glow brightened until he was almost painful to look at. His telepathic senses were broadcasting raw emotion to everyone around him, and that emotion was joy. Held the position for 5 more seconds. Then, slowly and carefully, she released Commander. She stood up. She stepped back. She returned to attention, standing straight with her hands at her sides, blood still running down her face. Rose slowly. His movements were stiff, careful. He turned to face her, and his 4 eyes held an expression that had never seen on a before. Fear. He opened his mouth to speak. No words came out. He closed it again. The moment stretched, thin as wire, sharp as a blade. Then turned and walked away. He did not run, do not run, but he walked very quickly and he did not look back. Lieutenant stared at for a long moment. Then she followed her commander, leaving the training yard in silence. No one gave orders. No one called an end to the exercise. The trainees stood frozen, unsure what to do. Finally, one of the human trainees began to laugh. It was a strange sound, half hysteria and half triumph. Another human joined him, then another. Did not laugh. She stood at attention, blood dripping from her chin, and waited. She knew this was not over. This was just the beginning. But for one moment, one perfect moment, a human had shown the galaxy something it had never seen before. A creature that looked weak and helpless had taken down one of the most feared warriors in the Concordat using nothing but her bare hands and her knowledge. The universe would never look at humanity the same way again. The news spread across Station 7 within hours. A human trainee had defeated Commander in unarmed combat. The story seemed impossible. Many refused to believe it. But there were 200 witnesses, and soon the video recordings from the training yard cameras began to circulate. Was taken to the medical bay first. A doctor treated the wound on her face, sealing the cut with medical gel. The doctor worked in silence, but her liquid eyes studied with intense curiosity. "You should have a scar," the doctor said finally. "Do you want me to remove it?" "Thought about it?" "No," she said. "Let it heal naturally." The doctor nodded slowly. "I have treated many species," she said. "I have never seen anyone move the way you did. The recordings do not make sense to me. You should not have been able to do what you did." "I was trained," said simply. "Trained by whom? What species could teach such techniques?" "Humans," said. "We trained ourselves." Before the doctor could ask more questions, guards arrived, expected to be arrested, executed, or both. Striking a superior officer was a capital offense under Concordat military law. She had known the consequences when she acted. But the guards did not take her to a prison cell. They took her to the office of Admiral, the station commander. Admiral was ancient even by standards. Her body was more water than solid, contained in a sophisticated suit that allowed her to move and speak on land. She had commanded 7 for over 200 years. Very little surprised her anymore. Surprised her. "Sit," the Admiral said, gesturing to a chair across from her desk. Sat, her uniform was still stained with her own blood. "I have watched the recording 17 times, Admiral said. I have slowed it down. I have analyzed every frame. I still do not fully understand what I saw." She paused. "Explain it to me." Considered her words carefully. "Commander is larger than me, stronger than me, more heavily armored. In a direct contest of force, he would destroy me, so I did not fight him directly." Continue. "Humans developed fighting systems over thousands of years. We call them martial arts. These systems teach us how to redirect force rather than oppose it, how to attack vulnerable points rather than armored ones, how to use an opponent's own weight and momentum against them." The Admiral's liquid eyes rippled. "You are telling me that your species developed the art of defeating stronger opponents because you were the weaker species on your world?" "Yes." "What were you fighting? What predators required such sophisticated techniques?" Hesitated, then she told the truth. "Each other, mostly." Admiral was silent for a long moment. "Your species spent thousands of years developing combat techniques to fight other humans." "Yes." "Why?" Did not know how to answer that question. Human history was filled with war. It was part of who they were. She had never really thought about why before. "We are competitive," she said finally. We fight for resources, for territory, for beliefs, for pride, sometimes for no reason at all." She paused. "It is not our finest quality, but it made us very good at surviving." The Admiral pressed a button on her desk. A holographic display appeared, showing anatomical scans of a human body compared to other concordat species. "I ordered a full medical examination of your species after the incident," the Admiral said. "The results are remarkable." She highlighted several areas. "Human muscle fiber is denser than we realized. Your strength-to-mass ratio exceeds most species in the concordat. You hide it well because your musculature is compact rather than bulky." She highlighted another area. "Your reaction time is significantly faster than average. Your nervous system is optimized for rapid response. This makes sense if your ancestors were prey animals who needed to react quickly to survive." Another highlight: "You possess a unique biochemical response that you call adrenaline. In moments of stress, your bodies can temporarily exceed their normal physical limits. You become faster, stronger, and more resistant to pain. No other sapient species has an equivalent mechanism." Nodded slowly. She had grown up knowing these things about her body. She had never realized they were unusual by galactic standards. "There is one more thing," the Admiral said, "perhaps the most significant." She brought up a historical record. "Your species calls it persistence hunting. Your ancestors did not outrun their prey. They followed it for hours, for days, until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. You are not the fastest species. You are not the strongest, but you may be the most enduring. You simply do not stop." The door opened, and the human ambassador walked in. Ambassador was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had served humanity's interests in the Concordat for 30 years. "Admiral," she said, nodding politely, "I came as soon as I received your message." "Ambassador, I have questions about your species that should have been asked 40 years ago." The Admiral's tone was not angry, but it was serious. "Why did humanity not disclose these combat capabilities when you joined the Concordat?" Ambassador sat down beside. "With respect, Admiral, you did not ask. The Concordat's evaluation of humanity focused on our technology, our resources, our political systems. No one thought to ask about our fighting abilities. We were small, soft creatures without natural weapons. The assumption was that we had none. And you did not correct this assumption." "We tried." The ambassador smiled slightly. "We submitted our historical records. We offered demonstrations. We were told that human martial arts were primitive compared to combat techniques, that our fighting styles were meaningless against armored opponents." She gestured at. "It seems one demonstration was worth more than 1,000 reports." The Admiral turned back to, "Under Concordat law, you should be executed for striking a superior officer." Felt her stomach tighten, but she kept her face calm. "I understand." "However," the Admiral continued, "Commander struck you first, unprovoked. This complicates the legal situation. More importantly, the High Command is in chaos. They do not know how to respond to this. If they demand your execution, they admit that a human could defeat a commander. If they do nothing, they appear weak." "What happens now?" asked. Before the Admiral could answer, a communication alert sounded. The Admiral accepted the call and a holographic image appeared. It was but not. This one was older, with ceremonial scars covering every visible scale. "Admiral," they said. His voice was formal and cold. "The High Command has made a decision regarding the incident involving Commander and the human trainee." "I am listening." "Commander has invoked the ancient right of challenge. Under the dueling laws of the Concordat, he demands formal combat with the human. The duel will be broadcast across all Concordat systems." They paused. "If he wins, his honor is restored and the human will be executed. If she wins—" He stopped, as if the possibility was too absurd to speak aloud. The communication ended. Felt the weight of the galaxy settling on her shoulders. A formal duel. broadcast to billions, against a warrior who would be prepared this time, who would bring all his strength and skill and rage against her. Ambassador reached out and took her hand. "You do not have to accept," she said quietly. "We can negotiate, find another solution." Thought about the other human trainees. About all the species who had lived under dominance for centuries, believing they could never fight back. "No," she said, "I accept." The Admiral studied her for a long moment. "Do you truly believe you can win?" Remembered her grandmother's words. "Weapons can be taken away, but this can never be taken." "I believe I have to try," she said. "Not just for me, for everyone who has ever been told they are too weak to matter." The Admiral nodded slowly. Something like respect flickered in her liquid eyes. "Then prepare well, human. The galaxy will be watching." The week before the duel was the strangest of life. She had gone from an invisible trainee to the most famous human in the galaxy. Every species on Station 7 knew her name. Some admired her, some hated her. All of them watched her. She trained in a private room the Admiral had provided. It was small and bare, with padded floors and mirrored walls. She spent hours there each day, moving through forms her grandmother had taught her, preparing her body and mind for what was coming. Commander was preparing too. The High Command had sent specialists to enhance him, combat drugs that increased his speed and strength, surgical reinforcement of his scales, chemical boosters for his reflexes. By the time the duel arrived, he would be more machine than flesh. Had none of these things. She had only her training, her knowledge, and her will to survive. On the third night, someone knocked on her door. Opened it to find Lieutenant standing in the corridor. The officer looked nervous, her 4 eyes darting around to make sure no one was watching. "May I come in?" asked quietly. Stepped aside, entered quickly, and the door closed behind her. "I should not be here," said. "If anyone finds out, I will be executed for treason." "Then why are you here?" Was silent for a moment. Then she reached into her uniform and pulled out a small data chip. "This contains everything I know about combat techniques, our weaknesses, our vulnerable points, the specific fighting style that Commander uses." Stared at her. "Why would you give this to me? He is your commanding officer, your own species." "Because what he did was wrong." His voice was tight with emotion she was struggling to control. "They are supposed to be honorable warriors. We are not supposed to strike unarmed trainees. We are not supposed to humiliate weaker species for entertainment. Commander has forgotten what honor means." She pressed the chip into his hand. "I am not giving you this because I want you to destroy him. I am giving you this because I want you to show him what he has become. My people need to change, but they will not change if you make him a martyr." Her 4 eyes met too. "Promise me, if you win, you will not kill him." Thought about this for a long moment. Killing would be easier in many ways, cleaner, final, but was right. Dead, he would become a symbol of victimhood. Alive and defeated, he might become something else entirely. "I promise," said. Nodded once, then turned and left without another word. Spent the rest of the night studying the data chip. She learned about the nerve clusters in the spine, the soft tissue behind their jaw plates, the slight delay in their visual processing when tracking fast-moving objects, every weakness, every vulnerability, every gap in their armor. Knowledge was a weapon too. The next morning came to see her. This glow was bright with concern. "The other telepaths want to help you," he said. "We cannot fight beside you, but we can help you prepare." "How?" Sat down cross-legged on the floor. "Close your eyes, I will show you." Sat across from him and closed her eyes. She felt telepathic presence touch her mind, gentle and warm. Then she was somewhere else. She was in the arena. The seats were filled with watching aliens. Across from her stood Commander, massive and terrible, his scales gleaming with new armor. The fight began. Moved, dodged, struck. But something was wrong, was faster than before. His enhanced reflexes caught her arm, his claws closed around her throat. She died. Then she was back at the beginning, same arena, same crowd, same opponent. Again's voice said in her mind, try again. Fought again, she tried different tactics, different approaches, she died again. And again. And again. 1,000 times she fought in her mind. 1,000 times she learned from her mistakes, and the other fed her simulations drawn from every recorded duel, every combat technique, every possible scenario. By the time she opened her eyes, hours had passed. His glow was dim with exhaustion, but his expression was hopeful. You died many times, he said, but in the last 100 simulations you survived. Nodded slowly. Her body ached as if she had actually fought 1,000 battles, but her mind was sharper than it had ever been. That evening, unexpected visitors arrived at her door, delegations from other species. An elder brought her a salve made from the glands of their prey animals, said to increase reaction speed. A warrior shared breathing techniques that could help her manage pain. Even a young, one of the trainees from her cohort, came secretly to wish her luck. Not all of us agree with what Commander has done, the young whispered. Some of us remember the old honor codes, the real ones. Was moved by their support, but she also understood something important. This duel was not just about her anymore. Every species that had ever been dismissed as weak, every individual who had ever been told they did not matter, was watching. If she won, it would prove that strength came in many forms. If she lost, it would confirm everything they had always believed. The pressure was immense, but had trained her whole life to perform under pressure. Humans were good at that. On the final night before the duel, the human ambassador came to see her. Ambassador found sitting alone, reading something on a data pad. When she looked closer, she saw it was poetry. Ancient warrior sagas about honor and courage and the glory of battle. What are you doing? The ambassador asked. Learning about them, said. They were not always like this. Their ancient texts speak of honor as a sacred trust, of strength used to protect the weak, not dominate them. Somewhere along the way they forgot. And you think you can remind them. Set down the data pad. I think I have to try. If I just defeat, I prove that humans can be dangerous. That is not enough. I need to show them something they have forgotten about themselves. The ambassador was quiet for a long moment. Then she laughed softly. You know, when I first met you, I thought you were just another scared trainee trying to survive. I was wrong. You might be the most terrifyingly human person I have ever met. What do you mean? You are not just planning to fight him. You are planning to understand him, to reach him. That is what humans do. We do not just defeat our enemies, we try to change them. The ambassador shook her head in wonder. It is our greatest strength and our greatest weakness. Looked at the poetry again. At words written thousands of years ago by warriors who believed in something beyond mere power. Tomorrow, she said, we will find out which one it is. The ambassador left, sat alone in the darkness, preparing her mind for the battle to come. Outside her window, the stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere out there, billions of beings were waiting to see what would happen, waiting to see if the galaxy would change. Closed her eyes and began to breathe. In and out, slow and steady, the rhythm of a persistent predator, the patience of a species that had never learned how to give up. Tomorrow she would show them. The Arena of Honor was the oldest structure on Station 7. It had been built by the 3,000 years ago when they first claimed dominance over the Concordat's military. Its walls were carved with the names of every warrior who had ever fought there, every duel, every victory, every death. Today, for the first time, a human name would be added to those walls. Stood at the entrance to the arena, looking out at the vast circular space. The seats rose in tiers all around, filled with representatives from every species in the Concordat. Billions more watched through broadcast feeds across the galaxy. The air hummed with tension. Across the arena, a massive gate opened, and Commander entered. He was transformed. His scales had been reinforced with metallic compounds that glittered like weapons. His muscles bulged with chemical enhancement. His 4 eyes burned with cold fury. In his 4 hands he carried traditional combat blades, curved and cruel. Walked forward to meet him. She wore no armor. She carried no weapons. Her simple combat suit left her arms and legs bare. The scar on her cheek from his first blow had healed into a thin white line. The crowd fell silent. An official stepped forward to announce the rules. It was traditional combat. No restrictions. The duel would end when one fighter could not continue or was dead. Listened without expression. Then the official retreated, and she was alone with. "You should not have come," Human said. His voice was deeper than before, modified by the drugs flowing through his system. "I will not make the same mistake twice." Said nothing. She settled into her stance, loose and ready. The signal sounded. Attacked like a storm. His 4 arms moved in patterns designed to overwhelm, to leave no gap in his assault. His blades whistled through the air fast enough to blur. Moved. She did not try to block. She flowed around his attacks like water around stone. She was there and then she was not. The blades passed through spaces she had already left. But she could not avoid everything. One blade caught her shoulder, drawing a line of blood. Another grazed her thigh. The crowd roared. Pressed harder. His enhanced speed made him faster than any had ever been. His strikes came from angles that should have been impossible to track. Went down. She hit the ground hard, blood running from multiple wounds. Stood over her, all 4 blades raised for the killing blow. Then she got up. Hesitated just for a moment, but in combat a moment is everything. Struck, her palm hit the nerve cluster under his jaw, sending a shock of pain through his enhanced nervous system. She rolled away before his counterstrike could connect. They circled each other. Blood dripped from wounds, but her eyes were clear, focused. Attacked again. Again he drove her down. Again she rose. The crowd began to notice. This was not how duels were supposed to go. When a fighter fell, they were supposed to stay down. But this human kept rising. No matter how many times she was beaten down, she stood back up. "Why will you not stay down?" roared. There was something in his voice now, not just anger, something else, something like fear. His answer was to attack. She could not match his strength. She could not match his reach, but she had something he did not understand. Every time she fell, she learned something. Her body adapted. Her mind adjusted. She was not fighting blindly. She was solving him. The fight stretched on. Minutes that felt like hours. Both fighters bled. Both fighters slowed, but never stopped getting back up. And then made his mistake. He committed fully to a 4-armed killing strike. The same move that had ended dozens of opponents. The move he believed was unstoppable. Did not try to stop it. She flowed through it. She used his own momentum, redirecting his mass in a direction he did not expect. Her knee found the gap in his hip scales. Her elbow cracked against the soft tissue behind his shoulder. Her palm struck the nerve cluster at the base of his skull. In 3 seconds was on the ground, paralyzed. Her knee pressed against his spine in exactly the same position as before. The arena went completely silent. Could feel his pulse racing under her hands. She could feel the fear in his massive body. The great warrior was helpless, his fate in her hands. The crowd waited. The galaxy waited. Everyone knew what happened next in duels. The victor killed the defeated. It was tradition. It was law. Leaned down close to his ear. She spoke quietly, words that no microphone could pick up. She recited a passage from a warrior saga, a story she had studied the night before. It told of a great warrior named the elder ancestor of this same warrior line. In the story, The elder defeated a terrible enemy but chose not to kill him. Instead, he showed mercy and gained an ally. The story taught that true honor was not in conquest, but in knowing when to stop. Your ancestor understood something, whispered. Strength without wisdom is just violence. Victory without mercy is just murder. You have forgotten what it means to be a warrior. She released him. She stood, stepped back, and bowed to him in the human tradition, a gesture of respect for a worthy opponent. The crowd was frozen. No one moved, no one breathed. Lay on the ground for a long moment. His four eyes stared up at the arena ceiling. Then slowly, painfully, he rose to his feet. He looked at this small, wounded, bleeding human who had defeated him twice, who had shown him mercy he did not deserve. Then Commander did something no had done in recorded history. He returned her bow. The arena erupted, not in anger but in something else, shock, wonder, and somewhere in the sections where the non-species sat, something that sounded like hope. Walked out of the arena. She did not celebrate. She did not raise her arms in triumph. She simply walked away, leaving the galaxy to make sense of what it had witnessed. The months that followed changed everything. Humanity's status in the Concordat transformed overnight. They were no longer the charity case. They were something new, something the galaxy was only beginning to understand. Lieutenant began a quiet reform movement within the military. She used the duel as proof that honor could exist without dominance. Slowly, others began to listen. Commander requested reassignment, not away from humans, but to work alongside them. He told Admiral that he needed to understand the species that had twice defeated him. He needed to learn what made them different. And they formed a permanent friendship with the human contingent. The barriers between species began to break down. Was offered promotions, commendations, and political positions. She declined them all. She asked only to complete her training and return to her unit. On her last day at Station 7, found her in the common area, packing her few belongings. "I have to ask you something," said. His telepathic senses brushed against her mind. "In the arena, when asked why you would not stay down, you did not answer, but I felt something in you, something ancient. What was it?" Paused. She thought about her grandmother, about the thousands of years of human history, about all the times her species had been beaten down by forces stronger than themselves. "Humans are not strong because we win," she said finally. "We are strong because we have learned how to lose and get back up more times than any species in the galaxy. We are not warriors because we love to fight. We are warriors because we refuse to stay down." Sklo brightened. "That is beautiful," he said, "and terrifying." Smiled. "That is humanity." She picked up her bag and walked toward the transport that would take her to her next assignment. Behind her, the galaxy continued to turn, but something had shifted, something had changed. They had learned that strength was not the only measure of worth. The other species had learned that being small did not mean being weak, and humanity had taken its first step toward becoming what it was always meant to be. Not conquerors, not victims, something else entirely. Partners, protectors, and when necessary, the most persistent warriors the galaxy had ever seen. Looked out the window as the transport lifted off. Station 7 shrank below her, becoming just another point of light among the stars. Somewhere down there, Commander was learning to see the universe differently. Somewhere, Lieutenant was planning a better future for her people. Somewhere, was telling others about the strange, stubborn, impossible humans who refused to stay down. Touched the scar on her cheek. It would fade eventually, but she would remember. She would always remember. The galaxy was vast and old and full of wonders. And now, thanks to one small act of courage and mercy, it was a little bit better than it had been before. That was enough. That was everything.